Hello my friends, my name is Nairi. I'm running an adoption channel and I've got two adopted boys who are now 12 and 13, and we've had them since they were 2 and 3 when we were fostering them. And so today I'm going to talk about toddler chaos and why sometimes it can be chaotic if you're adopting a toddler. And what I would say is most people do actually end up adopting a toddler or going through the adoption stages with their adopted child. So even if you adopt a baby, you are likely then to obviously have an adopted toddler. And so we want to talk today about why it is so chaotic, and I'll share some of my experiences with you, and hopefully that will help you if you're thinking of adopting or you already have adopted a toddler. So first thing to say is, when we had the boys in as foster carers, obviously we went through similar motions as what you will as an adopter. And the thing is about when you adopt is sometimes you feel that when you take on children from foster carers, you're going to be able to change everything that happens. And of course you want to try to change things to work around your family circumstances. But the reality is that children come in with their own benchmark already, their own set of rules that they've been shown either by their birth parents or their foster carers. So the first thing to say to you is if you're adopting and you're taking a child on, particularly from foster carers, you may find that there are things that you really didn't like about the way that they were bringing the children up, or a routine that you think won't work for you. And in a time, of course, you're going to be able to change that. But toddlers thrive on routine and familiarity. Toddlers probably more than anybody else, because they're out of that baby stage and they're beginning to kind of work out what the world is going on around them, what their boundaries should look like, who their familiar adults are like, and all of a sudden they're having this massive change. And so for you to come in and change everything to the way that you might like to do it is probably not going to be the best solution in the beginning. And so one of the balancing acts that you're going to have is to try and balance out between what you want to change when they first come in and what you want to keep. So the first thing you need to think about is what has to absolutely change and what can you keep as part of their routine. Now let me give you an example of what happened to us when the children first came to us. So they were tiny little boys. If you look on my channel, you'll see lots of videos about our experiences, and they were very neglected. So they were tiny little boys and they came in and they were 2 and 3. Now I know they'd come in as foster children, but it's still a similar principle in a way. They'd come in with their own set of rules, and for them their set of rules around sleeping were going to be very different from what our set of rules were, but we didn't know that at the time. We knew nothing about these children that were coming in, and so we set up a bedroom ready for them as toddlers, one nearly 2, one nearly 3, and the little one was so tiny we decided, even though we didn't have any information, that we would set a cot up for him to go into, because it made sense. And especially as we didn't know if they were going to be safe in beds, we set a cot up. Within an hour of putting him in that cot, he'd managed to climb out over the highest level of that cot, and I went in the room and there he was standing looking at me in the middle of the room saying, "Why are you putting me," he wasn't saying it, he was looking at me as if to say, "Why are you putting me in that thing?" And clearly what they'd had is some form of bed, or potentially that they'd just been allowed to kind of sleep where they were in the living room or whatever. So this is an example I'm trying to give you where I had my, shall we say, standard that I wanted. I wanted him to be safe in a cot, but he'd come with another idea. And so when you do adopt a toddler, you've got to realise that whilst there's a whole amount of ground rules and things that you want to put in place, that you need to work out really, really carefully what the foster carer has put in place and what you want to put in place. So in effect, you're going to have 2 routines, one the foster carer has made and one that you want to happen. And you're going to have to gradually dovetail those 2 things together so that actually it's not too much of a shock to your toddler. But this can be very chaotic because actually you don't know what it is you're going to be able to change. You don't know how your routine is going to look, and you don't entirely know exactly what the foster carer was doing. Even if they've given you some sort of idea, you won't 100% know what it is they've been doing. You're never going to know everything, and that's why it can be chaotic, because you're trying to mesh together 2 households in effect, and that's normal. That's okay, and it takes a long time before you finally get your routines into place. I would say a good 6 months before things really start to look like the routine that's going to be your family life. And also, of course, you've not had that family life before. So you may already have children, you may already have had toddlers, you may have adopted before, but you still don't know what the routine is actually going to look like for this adopted toddler. And that's why it can feel totally chaotic. And it can feel like you're not in control of the situation. And that's normal as well. I just want to say, when you feel out of control, that is normal as well. So the other thing to say is that toddlers are beginning to learn new things all the time. All the time they are learning something new, and you want to get the right things in. You want to establish good eating habits, a good bedtime routine. You want to establish good behavior with them. And of course, it is really important that you do have those standards, that you do know what your own mind is on those things, because toddlers will push you really, really hard, especially when it comes to foods, for example. If they've been allowed to do certain things, they're going to push you really hard on those things. So you need to know your own mind. You need to know what you think is an acceptable bedtime, what you think is acceptable behavior, and you need to work toward it. But it's good to give them the full round of experiences from the beginning. Obviously, you can't push too hard for the toddler to accept what it is you're trying to kind of sell to them. So it may be they've never seen carrots before, and you're trying to encourage them to eat more vegetables, for example. But a toddler may not accept that to start with. But that doesn't mean to say you can't keep trying and you can't keep offering. It may be that your toddler doesn't want to go to sleep until they actually drop. Every time you put them to bed, they're going to resist that and fight that, and that's okay in the beginning. But it's also okay for you to stick to what you want to achieve. So if you want that 6:30, 7 o'clock bedtime, then keep working toward that. Keep trying to take that toddler up. Don't allow that toddler to dictate to you that it's always going to be, they're going to fall asleep when they drop in your arms, and that's how it's going to be. So it's a case again of trial and error, but that can feel so chaotic and out of control for you, because you know what it is you want. You know you want your toddler to eat fresh produce and be eating healthily. You know you want your toddler to go to bed at a certain time, but none of it is working, and that's okay. None of it is working because they are pushing the boundaries, because they're unsettled, they're insecure, they've come from a different home, and they are also, toddlers try to get their own way. So a toddler will probably prefer to cuddle into you and fall asleep. To a certain extent, there's nothing wrong with that, but obviously you don't want them to continuously be in control and be able to keep pushing the boundaries that you finally want to get in place. So again, a balancing act. Of course, the other thing that you're going to be trying to do, which is key, and I mentioned so much on my channel about attachment, is build an attachment. And so you will want to be trying to do new things with them, experiencing different environments, going to different people's houses, taking them on trips, doing the things that families do. But of course, that may not work out for you in the way that you want it to in the beginning. And that can feel like you may be hemmed in the house too much, that you're not able to do what you wanted to do. You may find that you wanted to go back to work and it's not quite working out for you. You can't go back to work full time because they're just not ready to be left. And so because you're trying to build an attachment, and the toddler years are the most crucial for that. Obviously babies is crucial for that as well, but we're talking about those toddler years, is that you're trying to build that attachment, but it's so hard to do that and to give all the other experiences that you may want to offer as a family. And so you may have to pull back a little bit, and that may feel uncomfortable for you. You may find that doing play dates doesn't work very well, or allowing them to stay with nanny for too long is not working very well. And so you may have to pull back on what you envisaged was going to be family life with a toddler, and that may feel chaotic in a way as well, because you are not in control. It feels like your toddler is in control. So a bit like my last point, what I would say to you is keep going back to trying those things, even if they're not working very well. Try them out from time to time, but just accept that you may have to go at a slower pace and that you may have to slow it down. And by doing that, in a way, you will feel that it is less chaotic, because actually you're probably going more at the pace that this newly adopted toddler, or fairly newly adopted toddler, can actually cope with. You know, bear in mind they've had so much change and so much breakdown of attachment that to try and build attachment is so very, very difficult, and it requires you to be consistent and to keep boundaries and routines very, very regular and consistent so that they feel safe. In connection with that, of course, is introducing new adults. Now, you don't want to be the person who's always caring for your toddler, or the couple that's always caring for your toddler, because it will kind of fry your brain. Like, so much will be going on, your toddler will be demanding, and they tend to be quite fast-paced and want things all the time, push boundaries all the time. You might be lucky that if you don't have one like that, but most of the time that is how children in the early years are, because they're developing so fast. And you may feel that you want to start introducing adults, and this is what I said before about different environments, and by all means do introduce adults. But of course, when it comes to insecure toddlers and having insecure attachment and having had so many different experiences and different benchmarks and routines, introducing new adults can be really, really tough. Most of the time, if you introduce an adult within the first couple of months, a toddler will gradually feel quite safe around them. But you're not really supposed to introduce adults in the first few weeks anyway. You need to try and keep it really close with yourself, keep that close bond going. But when you start to introduce adults, you might find people that you get on really well with, the toddler doesn't warm to at all or is fearful of. And you may find that some of the friendships that you used to hold dear just do not work out for your adopted toddler, because that friend just does not understand what it is you're trying to achieve, does not understand the boundaries you're putting in place and why you can't do certain things with your toddler. And so you need to introduce the adults in a way that makes sense for both of you, you and your toddler. And sometimes that will be disappointing. Sometimes that will feel chaotic, because you will be getting on the phone and saying, we're not coming today, you know, we're not going to the beach today because I don't feel my toddler is in the right frame of mind, or we're not going to the beach today because such and such will be there and my toddler just does not, you know, feel safe around that person. And this can be so tough to make those decisions, but you will have to make them, and that will calm things down when you know that you can plan ahead things that your toddler is going to be comfortable with. Also, equally, the friendships for your toddler as you move through the stages of early years. So if we call a toddler, say 1 to say school age, as you go through that time, you'll notice that your toddler is beginning to make friendships and try to make friendships. When they're around about 2, they kind of play alongside children and not so much with them, but as they reach 3 and 4, they're trying to make friendships, and some of those will be healthy and some of those will be beneficial. And children really do get confidence from their peers and their friendships. It's really important that you do mix with other children of the same age, and you do allow them those experiences of social interaction, because that will increase their confidence. However, you may find that some friendships just aren't right. You may go to play dates, you may go to the park, you may go to toddler groups, you may set them up at nursery and preschool, and you find that some friendships really do antagonize your toddler and bring out the worst situations for them. Maybe they get triggered by certain things. Maybe your toddler needs to have a lot of control, and then you bring in someone into the group as a friend who also wants a lot of control, and then it doesn't work. So rather than just letting your toddler always try to pick their friends, if you see that it's not working and it's being chaotic, then you can step in and you can actually make the changes that you need to make. As a parent, as an adopted parent, you need to be a really great advocate, and you need to stand up for what you think is working for your child. And a couple of my other points are, all through these circumstances and the chaos of having a toddler in your home and all these things you need to think about, you need to be really strong on finding yourself respite that really works for you, whether it be an hour, whether it be a day, a weekend, a week. You need to build in respite into your year plan, if you like. Make sure that you have times away that you can just recharge your batteries. Any parent with a toddler, regardless of an adopted toddler, will tell you that they get really exhausted, and that is quite normal. You know, you have them by day, you have them by night. They're often restless at night. They might be teething, they might be trying to kind of potty train and kind of get out of their diapers or nappies at night, and so they can be quite wakeful at night. You don't have the best night's sleep, and so you get really exhausted when you are parenting a toddler, and so you need to build in that respite, and don't be afraid to do that. Of course, you're going to need that trusted adult, which hopefully over time you'll build up. And no, maybe you won't be able to do too much within the first few months, even the first 6 months. But trust me, you're going to need regular respite, and it's so important for your mental health to actually find those people that can help you to do that. And also, sometimes you do need a shoulder to cry on, because sometimes it can feel a bit much. Sometimes it does feel like chaos. Sometimes it does feel like you're not doing a great job, that you don't know where to turn to, what to do next. So sometimes you just need that person that you can offload on to and have a shoulder to cry on. I will link a playlist for you. I'll link adopted children's behaviour playlist for you, but there are other playlists on attachment, therapeutic parenting. Please find them. I hope you find them useful, and I hope you're subscribed to Adoption with Nairi. Thank you.